We're talking about the Minority Report coming up now. All right, Kevin, Minority Report, Tom Cruise, early 2000s. Did you ever see this one in the theaters before we get to the good, the bad, and the ugly of Minority Report?
I did. This was back in a magical time when you can go to a movie and not because you saw the preview and you're like, oh God, I recognize that character. I recognize that IP. I want to go see it. This was a time when you could see something interesting, a trailer, and you didn't know what this story was about. You didn't know what this movie was, but you're like, fuck, that looked interesting. I want to go see that.
Mm-hmm.
And you would go see this movie on blind faith, not knowing what it was going to be about. And golly, this was just an interesting mind flick at the time. And I did see it in the theater, but I did not remember liking it at the time.
Yeah, I never saw this in theaters. This was actually my first time watch for me, because for me, Tom Cruise movies, for the most part, I'm gonna just go ahead and say they were all pre-crimes for me. So I actively avoided most of them. I mean, I did watch like Mission Impossible, and after Mission Impossible 2, I'm like, okay, he wore out his cred with me until Tropic Thunder. But then even after Tropic Thunder, I'm like, I'm still not really down for him as a lead in a movie. I mean, not to say he doesn't have a good career, and I haven't enjoyed some of his movies, but like I watched like the last one that we covered here on this channel was War of the Worlds. And then watching this one, I'm a little more open to like checking out his movies. I even have like most of the Mission Impossibles on my shelf, waiting to check out for the first time after part 2, because I hear some of them are actually pretty good. But this and there's one with Morgan Freeman. I believe it's called Oblivion. I still need to see that one, and then Edge of Tomorrow. So I'm starting to slowly get through the Tom Cruise filmography.
You are a better man than I, dude. Like, your tolerance level is up to here compared to me. Like,
goddamn right it is.
See,
I at least want to make my own opinion. Like, it's been long enough. I've been hating on it. It's like, everybody keeps saying, check this movie out, check this movie out. And this is at the top of the list of movies that I've heard from a lot of people through the years. Like, this is one of his best movies he's done. Maybe not like top 2, but like it's definitely a top 5 for most people. And I just finally had to check it out. But after watching War of the Worlds with Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise, I was a little apprehensive getting into this, but kind of fit our theme for the month, so I was pretty down for checking this out. And Kevin, what was good about this movie?
What was good about this? Let's start us off. I'm going to say Samantha Morgan. Samantha Morgan was great.
She crushed it in this one. I totally agree.
You know what? Not just Samantha Morgan. I have this picture called And the Rest. The supporting cast in this movie is fucking amazing.
Colin was awesome, dude.
Yeah.
And so was the white hair guy. I can never remember his goddamn fucking name.
The white haired guy? That's Neil.
Yeah.
Yeah, Neil McDonough. I'm sorry.
I never remember his name. I've seen him in so many things, but I never remember his actor name.
I heard you say Colin, but I thought you were talking about Neil McDonough there for a second. So I'm just kind of like, whoop, okay.
I think you're getting a little Irish-Scottish thing going on here, Kevin. We need to get you off the sauce and get you sobered up for this one.
My eyes got mismatched.
No.
That's also relevant.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But that great cast, to your point.
Yeah. That was the first thing that truly stood out for me watching this now. Not my original run watching this. Like this,
right.
My good, bad, and ugly is all going to be from this view. Original watch, I didn't care for this at all. It's a really long flick, or it was a really long flick. I didn't buy Tom Cruise after like you said, Mission Impossible 2. And my final straw with my tolerance level was War of the Worlds. Like, that was just total crap. So I was really apprehensive going back to watching this again because I remember not liking it. And once I remember not liking something, if I watch it again, chances are I'm probably not going to like it again that second time. Like,
Right.
very rarely do I watch a movie a second time where I'm kind of like, okay, I get it now. Like The Mummy, you weren't trying to make a scary movie.
Oh,
Okay,
hell no.
I get it now. It's
Yeah.
enjoyable. This I was able to be like, okay, I'm sitting here watching it with a really low expectation level, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit more. And that was another good point for me. It's like 20 years of 22 years of hindsight. Put enough nostalgia goggles on this where it's like I expected it to be utter crap, and was pleasantly surprised to have an action flick that had more of a story than any of the Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah, I would also go along the lines with the story. I actually wrote the cast down and the good story and some pretty good character development throughout. And I really like the twists that come at the end. Like some stuff you can see coming a little bit. The movie is a bit paint by numbers at times, but they took a different way to get to certain things. Because early on, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about the ending super quick. The second I saw Max von Sydow, I'm like, he's the guy who killed the first chick, isn't he? It's literally on my note. And I've never seen this movie before. All I know is it's based off of a Philip K. Dick short story. And I wrote him down, and I wrote down Colin's going to end up helping out Tom Cruise later on in the movie. And he doesn't help him, but he did come around to understand what was really kind of going on with the story. He just didn't have all the pieces, and he ended up getting smoked at the end, that sucked, but I understood what it was doing with the story because I really liked his character and how driven he was. And I'm like, at some point, he's going to figure out what the hell's going on. And like the last 40 minutes of this movie, he's going to be helping Tom Cruise's character for the rest of the movie. And they're both going to take this fucker down. And the second he realizes what's going on, he's dead.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck. I'm like, come on. But that's a good twist. You had me guessing with that particular one. And the other good twist that I totally appreciated was I knew the guy who kidnapped Mr. Leo Crow. Was that the name, Leo?
I think so.
That was not lost on me. Maybe it was a little subtle nod to Leonardo DiCaprio. But I will leave it at that. Let that stew on your minds for just a moment. But the fact that I'm like, oh, he's been working with these fuckers for the whole time. But what I wasn't guessing is he was just a total fucking fake to begin with.
Yeah, because they were doing so well on that scene that they really kind of made you forget that there was a subplot of somebody trying to fuck him.
Right. And I'm like, oh, literally, my wife had seen this movie before and she didn't say anything. And I'm like, this is what's going to happen. And she's like, And then I literally went, what the fuck? And she's like, yep. I thought that would get you. It got everybody in the theater when she had seen it in the theater. So, but she hasn't seen this movie since that long ago. Sure, she barely remember. For the longest time while we were watching it, she's like, I think I've seen this, but it might have just been bits and pieces. Then as we got to the end, she's like, yeah, I've seen this movie before.
Surprise!
I really did like the pacing. Maybe not the pacing, but the overall story is pretty good and good developments and good twists. I really enjoyed all of that. And amazing casting all the way down to the guest stars of what I would call guest stars with Peter Stormare.
Oh, God, yes.
A very thin Peter. And he was so fucking good in this scene.
And I love that he's speaking in Swedish and he's telling this lady to get out of the bathroom to wipe her ass. And you're like, ah.
And they're about to do eye removal surgery on him. I'm like, oh my God, this is disgusting. This is great.
I forgot Spielberg did this movie. I went into this again completely blind, just watching a Tom Cruise movie that I didn't remember liking. And like, it became evident very quickly that this is a Spielberg movie. Like, it has so many telltale signs, like the action sequences of them like wrestling a guy with the flamethrower, a jetpack on with a flamethrower shooting out of his ass, and it's cooking people's breakfast at the breakfast table as they're wrestling in the air.
Yeah,
I'm like, you know what? I think this is a Spielberg movie. Like, that's so stupid. That just might be. Aha, yes.
Yep, it's Spielberg.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some hallmarks of his, including the runtime, which we'll get to that in a moment.
Yes, but there were no aliens.
Nope, no aliens and no I can't say no AI, because I did get a kick out of some of the scenes where with the targeted advertising going on. All they had to do is check your eyeball, and all of a sudden, John, when's the last time you purchased a pair of those sweet little tank tops you were wearing? And I'm like, oh my God, with the Gap and like with the cologne and the diamonds, they're all calling your name out, being like, hey, shop over here, shop over here. And he came in and she's just like, was that a YouTube video? I'm like, no, babe, I'm watching on Amazon Prime. It's not YouTube. She's like, it sounds like a goddamn targeted ad in the middle of watching a movie. And I'm like, that's a really good point. I'm going to add that to our list.
This movie had more sponsorship ads than Wayne's World did. Like, that
certainly felt like it.
Yeah, like you really expected fucking Garth to come in and be like, it's like people only do things to get paid. And that's
like
just
Aquafina, Pepsi, Gap. Like, we could go down a whole list of all the sponsors in this, including Lexus.
Yeah.
Sweet cars. I did enjoy the futuristic cars.
You know, I always thought that was cool. And Spielberg got like a list of people that were like the people that were in the know of cutting edge technology, what was being worked on, what the future would look like at that point, where technology is going at that point in time.
Yeah.
And they made some pretty good guesses, things that are starting to come to pass.
Oh yeah. Some of that tech was great.
Yes. Yeah. The eye movement recognition, people say, oh, where do you see that a lot? I'm like, dude, I see that every fucking day. Well, it sees me every day. I don't see it.
Yeah, and retinal scanning is starting to become more of a security thing. And I noticed one of the machines was literally called an eye dent.
Yes. You know,
I was like, very punny, guys. Very punny.
Yeah, everything coming down to biometrics, and even biometrics are able to be like hacked and shit now. Just some really neat stuff. But the unfortunate thing is these self-driving cars that they've predicted. What do we got for that?
They're still testing that shit in California, isn't it? It's going to be a very long time before we get that. Demolition Man was a whole lot closer to what we'll end up seeing.
Yes, I think so.
But well, you talk about the cars. I like the gadgets and the weaponry. I love the whip shotgun that then shoots out the force blast. That was like one of my I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. So the movie definitely had some cool moments going on and cool ideas, and it was a fun movie.
That shotgun, like the kid in me inside, is going, it's practical and fun.
Well, it totally built up the kinetic energy to use as the force. So it's like you wound it up 3 or 4 times and it was even bigger. It's like, that's pretty wicked. I could actually see, and like the 6 sticks, that was super funny. All you got to do is poke somebody and they immediately throw up. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Only Spielberg.
That was pretty goddamn funny when he yorked on that dude. Like,
well, they kept calling him 6 sticks, and I'm like, why are they calling him? Oh, okay, that's why.
Yeah, I just assumed that it was like some electro. Yeah, it was fun, ill but fun.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, Kevin, that's the good. Let's get into the bad of Minority Report. I'm gonna start us off here, super quick. The runtime. In typical Steven Spielberg fashion, this movie clocks in at 2 hours and 25 minutes, counting credits. It's about 30 minutes too long.
Yes.
There's a lot that could have been cut out.
Agreed. and I'm gonna integrate my bad with yours with scenes like this here, which is just a lot of look at Tom Cruise, look at being
Cool
focused.
shit.
Yeah, look at Tom being Tom. He's voguing, moving out numbers, voguing. Like, it was neat the first time, but after that, you didn't necessarily need it as much. You don't need the Tom show for the entire 2.5 hours. Cut it down. There was so much that they did multiple times that only needed to have been done once or twice. It didn't need to be repeated throughout the entire film, making
Several
it that much longer.
times. It's like, I know you're trying to handhold the audience through a complicated plot that's going on, but it was excessive. You really didn't need it. And that's just, it's not a knock on the movie itself. It's a knock on the idea that you have to have so much padding and keep repeating stuff. It's like, audiences are a bit smarter than this. You didn't really need this like at all. You could have saved yourself a bit of money in the editing and in time in the editing room. You could have just clipped a bunch of stuff out. You want a director's cut later on? Fine, have at it. But for the first experience in the theater, this easily could have been an hour and 52 minutes and been just fine.
Yeah. I mean, ironically, given its long time, given the fact that it's got Tom Cruise in it and that it's a sci-fi flick, I'm so pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed it so much more this time. Like, I was not bored. I was really quite irritated with my kids because they kept bothering me while I was watching it.
I'm trying to watch a movie.
Yeah, usually it's like if they irritate me, it's because I'm trying to get through something. It's like, it's so long already. And this was long, yes, but there was a lot of action going along with it. But even past that action, they had repetitious moments. Like, well, past the first half of the film. Where did it go? Carrying Agatha. I understand she cannot run. She is not a mobile person.
She ain't really moved a whole lot in like however many goddamn years.
Yeah, like ever. Like, well,
or
since
6
she was
years.
a kid. Yeah. I guess that would be right. Anyway, it was kind of like going from Resident Evil 3 to Resident Evil 4, where you've suddenly got to take care of the president's daughter. Like, it was a little jarring going into that second act.
Yeah.
And it kept going on, and they made it a little bit more interesting as that went on, when she'd say things like, grab that fucking umbrella. What? No, we don't have time. Grab the umbrella! Like, okay, Jesus Christ.
The gentleman's going to drop his blue briefcase, and this person's going to do that and drop money for this hobo. What? Drop money for the hobo. Okay. And at least that had a fun payoff.
Yeah. And God, anytime she did or he didn't listen to her, her response, her acting got so much better. Like, was like raging at him to listen.
She was borderline outshining Tom Cruise very often.
Yes, I would agree.
His last name was
did.
What, Anderton?
Anderton, yes.
I'm like, some of the names are kind of dumb.
Someone named Anderton is writing in right now going, "Dear Mr. Johnson, fuck
Unsubscribe.
you."
And
Why isn't it Johnston, Smithy?
I'll 3 snaps and a twist that.
It's pronounced Frederick.
Yeah.
No, but Samantha Morton she was brilliant in this, and
She was excellent.
she couldn't have been in it more, but it's too bad we didn't get to see more of her. She was a fun character.
That's true. And Tom did his usual shtick for this movie, and when he got pulled out for like a good 20 minutes of movie, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, this isn't like a Tom Cruise movie where he disappears for 20 minutes.
Yeah, his usual shtick is this face.
Yeah.
That's his I'm a human like you face.
I'm a deer in the headlights. I'm nice. You can buy that.
Yeah. I'm not a psychotic. And this was after that psychotic issue I think he had, wasn't it? Or no, this is
I
before that.
don't. Yeah, I want to say it was before because he was not jumping on couches at this point.
Yeah, that was for the chick that was our age.
Katie Holmes.
Yes, sorry.
Nope. And that was right around just after Batman Begins.
Yes, and this was right around the time
did-
that he and Seabiscuit got together.
Seabiscuit?
There's an episode of Family Guy where Cleveland is working as a interviewer on the red carpet, and he's like, "Oh, here comes Seabiscuit, Seabiscuit, Seabiscuit," and she walks up, going, "My name is Penelope Cruz. Would you like a carrot?"
Oh, Penelope. Okay. Penelope.
Penelope.
It's Penelope.
You are a gymnast. So, anyway.
Oh my god.
All right. So, and then the other bad thing I had was, like you said, with the CGI, I really like the stunt work. The stunt work was at this point part of his shtick after Mission Impossible 2, but it looked like this. You had him like fans blowing up under him. You know, he was doing something cool, but there was a green screen there. You can't really see what it was. So I think the green screens took away from his stunt work. Because say what you will about the Psychopath, he is a great stuntman, maybe one of the best that's ever lived.
Oh yeah, he's very willing to put his own butt on the line. So I'll totally give him like credit and props for doing stuff. But I have the CGI more for our next segment rather than this segment. But that's okay, Kevin. But I do agree it's not great. And you know, at least he's able to do his own stunts, and he even did his own acting.
Well,
he was fine in this movie. He didn't annoy me as much as he usually has in other movies that I've seen him in. So I think he was fine. There was nothing remarkable, but it was nothing bad. It was just kind of pretty middle of the road for him. And he tries to have emotion at times. And it's like, no, I kind of like him more when he's like a stern little pit bull of a guy and just he can be a little douchey. It's okay. You can incorporate that in the roles. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Les Grossman was the best character he's ever played. That's all there is to it. We'll just
that's one of those. I never realized it was him until I saw the end credits because I wasn't paying attention to the beginning of that movie. So I did not know he was in that movie. And that was even if they had opening credits for Tropic Thunder. I don't even remember if they did or not. But if they did, I wasn't paying attention. And then when the credits roll and it says Les Grossman, Tom Cruise, I'm like, the Tom Cruise? Shit. And it really was. And I'm like, oh my God. I went back and rewatched the movie and I'm like, shit, that's the best Tom Cruise I've seen since the movie Legend. Nice.
Honey, the little Jewish guy was that tiny Irishman. Huh?
Yeah, 4'7". Or whatever height he is. No, I think for the bad, my only other point is, for as good as the story is, there are some wild inconsistencies in it. There's some detail work that needed to be sorted out because, in my opinion, and this is going to be my big example, is when John is trying to break back into the building and he uses his eyeball to get scanned and get authorized. Why isn't it that the day before or so when they basically put him on pre-crime watch and they're trying to hunt him down, that they didn't revoke his access? Just saying.
They must have forgotten that part.
Yeah, for as futuristic as they were, like the second you find out, hey, our main captain here is about ready to kill somebody, maybe we should remove his access the second he's left the building so he can't get the fuck back in. And then there's several other scenes like that throughout the movie. It's like, hey, wait a minute. You didn't do this and you didn't do that and you didn't do this, but you did this. For all the fun twists they did, there were some plot issues and logic issues I had at times with the movie. I feel like that could have been maybe fixed in some post, or even just thinking a scene through. Like, do something like you did with Harrison Ford, Raiders of the Lost Ark. How do we defeat this guy with a whip? Just shoot him. Oh, darn. You could have done something very similar too.
True.
Just saying. Like, he could have actually had replacement eyes of somebody that worked in the building that used to have access that they never rescinded because he passed away. I don't know. I'm just throwing out some stupid ass example to try and make something logical happen. But the second he gets pinged and tagged as a pre-crime murderer, they should have just fucking just revoked his access. That would have ended the movie right there.
True. Roll credits.
Movie over.
They're like, oh shit, well, let's just skip it and maybe they won't notice.
Yeah. But, that's about what I got for the bad. It mostly comes down to like some of the plot issues and the runtime, basically. Like, because if it was a shorter movie, I would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah, probably. I'd watch it a lot more if it was shorter. Because this is kind of a this is a commitment.
Yeah, it really is a bit of a commitment, and it's typical for me in some Spielberg movies that I'm going to be sitting here for a while, and I know that as long as the story's good, and he's never been one who's been spot on with like little logic issues here and there with any of his movies. So
True. Spielberg is great for taking what's more entertaining versus what's more logistic or realistic, rather.
Yeah, he's more making it for the mass audiences. I get that. I'm not really knocking the movie straight up, saying like, man, these things took me out of the movie and they're fucking stupid. Yeah, they were fucking stupid, and I noticed them, but that's for a nitpicker like me. So, like, I would prefer details like that to be kind of cleaned up, but for most people, you're gonna gloss right over that if you're just watching this once and be like, okay, whatever. It's a popcorn movie. You can sit back with popcorn. You're still going to be thinking about certain things going on in this movie, though.
Yeah. Like, why didn't we let that fucking dude kill the guy at the beginning? Sorry.
You mean one of our favorite character actors from House 2, the Ari Gross?
Was that the Ari Gross?
The Ari Gross.
We told him not to cry.
I wasn't doing anything. I just had a pair of scissors in my hands and putting my glasses on while my wife was cheating on me. Literally on the side of the bed. I was like, oh my God.
I'm sitting there like yelling at my phone because that's how I was watching it. And my wife's just like, you're watching an adultery scene, aren't you? And I'm like, shut up. Deserves to die. Peel her eyelids off. Make her watch.
But you'd be like, hey, finally a vacation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly how Brandy looks at it. She's like, goes back to her tablet to play her video game. She's like, all right, you fucking weirdo. Anyway.
Push it is.
Yeah. Husband's gone insane, back to game.
Yep. All right, Kevin. We do have one segment left before we get to our overall assessment. What about the ugly of the Minority Report?
So we were talking about how he likes to do things that look better than are more realistic. I love the inside of this guy's fucking eyes and all the like little things, like nerves reaching out for the eyeball. That's not what the inside of your eyes look like, but it looks really fucking neat.
Looks like it goes all the way back to the back of his skull. It's like, that's wow. Okay.
And then you're kind of like, is that why skullduggery was a thing?
Could be.
Is this a kink I should be interested in? I don't
know.
No. Okay. Anyway.
No kink shaming.
So I didn't necessarily really have an ugly for this film because, like I said, I really enjoyed it this time around. I was not taken out by the fact that I can't stand Tom Cruise. I already know I can't stand Tom Cruise. I knew I was going to be bored for a time because it was going to be so long. It wasn't a surprise this time. What was a surprise that I didn't care for at all is this was a sequel to a movie I really loved and would have loved to have seen the sequel to, and it will never ever be. This is a sequel to Total Recall and was supposed to film Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That would have been dope.
Yep, this was not supposed to take place on Earth. This was not supposed to have Detective John Anderton. This was supposed to have Douglas Quaid. It was supposed to take place on Mars. The precogs were supposed to be 3 mutants that were able to tell the future.
Okay.
And then it took the pre-crime and had the story about choice. And it took fate into account of choice. And you're kind of like, wow. So we could have had that dope-ass action flick and found out what Douglas Quaid was all about after that. But Carolco went bankrupt. They sold the story. They couldn't.
Oh, that's what happened. I didn't look any of that up. I didn't want to like fall down a rabbit. I wanted to watch the movie like just straight brand new.
So what could have been is ugly for me because golly, I could have gotten into that. Would that have been as good as this movie, like quality wise? No, probably not. This got a 7.6. And I'm going to guess that's because of Spielberg and Cruise being in it. Had this had Schwarzenegger in it, I'm sure it would have been like a 6.7.
If it was Paul Verhoeven directing it, though,
8.7. 8.7.
Yeah, but he doesn't need to do sequels.
No, he doesn't. But that was really it for me, like the what could have been.
Yeah, that makes sense, though.
Yeah, that was it. Otherwise, this is a pretty decent sci-fi film. It's more of a philosophical film than it is sci-fi. It just happens to take place in the future because that's where the technology could take place.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Me, for the ugly, I'm gonna be that guy. The CGI is horrible in this movie for the most part. There are some scenes that are fine, but for the most part, for 2002, this looked horrible. It really looked bad. And you could throw a comment down below saying, oh, I have like horrible taste in CGI. I will quote Farscape, a TV show that came out 3-4 years before this, had way better special effects than this fucking movie did. And it's just straight truth. I mean, not so much like, say, jetpack scenes too much, but like when he's jumping along the wall, like you just showed that scene like not too long ago, him jumping across cars and this, that, and the other, that looks so fucking fake and horrible. It's like, well, what do? You do a practical set, then you have a CGI guy jumping across. It's like it's a hard bridge to cross on, like, so what's the good blend that would work? I would argue something that they probably didn't have a whole lot of was they needed more time to work on the special effects because there's so freaking many of them. I love like the computer scenes where they're doing all the stretching and doing, it's in our avatar up here in the upper right corner. When Tom Cruise is doing that stuff, that kind of special effect works very, very well. When you're filling up a whole screen with all special effects surrounding basically John, it's like, what the fuck? This looks so bad. It took me out of the movie quite a bit. So that really kind of knocked it down a peg for me. I know it's dated. I know it's 2002. There were other movies at this time that did a much better job with special effects. I would even argue the prequels looked fucking better than this movie.
Yes. And X-Men, if you want to get into the Cerebro effect, like
Bingo.
The room.
Yeah.
Or having the effects go in a 360 around you, like Cerebro worked a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just say they probably were being rushed to make a street date. And Spielberg was just like, you know what? Fuck it, whatever. Just get it done and get it out there. Because even for him, I mean, other than maybe like artificial intelligence, other than that one, like the special effects he usually does are really, I know he doesn't do them himself, but he usually has good quality work done. But that didn't happen here, but at least they had the John Williams score to kind of pull you back in with a good music selection. Now, I'm not putting that in the good. It's just, it's there. It doesn't really stand out, but it does kind of help the movie along. So that said, my ugly is the CGI of this movie is largely bad.
I dig it. I dig it, and I agree.
Ugly, so to speak, and pretty spot on with that assessment too.
It did take me out when I saw it originally at the theater. I was kind of like, oh, this kind of sucks. Like
Yeah.
I don't like that future. It's ugly. And then 5 years later, they made it look so much cooler in Iron Man.
Well, exactly. It's like, it could have been done. They probably just needed more time and they probably didn't have it. That's my guess. They couldn't go through like another pass or re-rendering anything that didn't look quite right. And Spielberg was probably like, yep, that's cool. Print it, put it out. Let's go.
We have a budget of 100 million. Let's try to keep this under that.
Yep, we can't make another Jaws, so.
There's only one shark.
There's only one shark. All right, Kevin, final assessment time. What are you going to score this bitch?
So for my final judgment, I'm gonna apologize to this movie. Golly, I like I said, I didn't care for it as a kid. I watched it more than comfortably. I was very entertained this time around. I hope you had fun watching it this time around, or your first time. I was really kind of shocked, like, oh gosh, he decided it. He does know it's the same people that did okay. Because golly, we hated War of the Worlds. But this was a lot of fun. It's a lot better than War of the Worlds. The special effects aren't as good as War of the Worlds, but it's a better story. The action is actually better. The characters are a lot more likable. There are no likable characters in War of the Worlds that I could recall. Pretty much everybody but John Anderton is pretty likable in this.
Yeah. And there's times that it feels like he could be a fun character you could really get behind, but for the most part, you're just following a pretty typical Tom Cruise character going on. So, yeah, for me, I'm going to pretty much follow the ratings. I'm going to go 7.5 on this. I enjoyed it. I had fun watching it. It did feel very long, though. Like, that goes back to my original point. It's about 30 minutes too long. They could have tightened it up, and it could have been a much faster-paced movie, and probably, I would argue, probably the strongest version of the movie. I mean, there's a lot of filler. What can I say? There's just things that don't need to be there and things that got repeated way too many times that were not necessary. But outside of like the bad CGI, I can't really hate the movie. That's just where I'm taking my points off, for those few things. But I highly enjoyed it. So 7.5 for me.
Nice. I will mimic that. I'll mirror that. Because again, there was no point in time where I was bored or not entertained, wondering, what am I going to do after this?
I was like, well, I'm going to go do something different now. I'm going to go like kill things in a video game.
No. So yeah, this is a fun. This is a recommendable movie.
Absolutely. And Kevin, you got any final thoughts before we say goodbye to everybody?
No, just this was a good flick. Very rarely do I get to come back around and say, you know what? I think I liked it a lot more this time. So
I've had movies like that too. I have. 2001: A Space Odyssey is the first one off the top of my head. Hated it growing up. It was until I got to college and I actually got forced to watch it in a film class. And I'm like, wow, that was actually really good.
But also really long.
Yes. But no. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you like this video, please hit that like button down below. You got any comments, any thoughts, memories, anything about Minority Report with Tom Cruise, directed by Steven Spielberg, put it down below. You don't agree with us? Hey, that's cool. But if you do like this video and you want to check out more of our content, hit that little subscribe button and the little bell notification, because next week we're going to be returning to the Living Dead. We're going to be covering the original Return of the Living Dead. and it's going to be in Linnea Quigley style. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Let's party, and we'll see you next time. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. We are at sunsandshadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.